Good afternoon, folks. We are starting today with a progress bar and how we can update it. Okay, so from that point of view, what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at our button, and we're probably going to mess this up, so we're going to take our time with this. And we have our vertical box, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap this with I'm not going to wrap that with a progress bar. So instead, can we wrap this with a progress bar? Apparently you can't wrap anything with a progress bar. So what I'm going to do for testing purposes is we're going to drag a progress bar into our size box, and then what we're going to do is we're going to fill it out and zero it and zero it, and that's not really what we want. Okay, so that is what we want, kinda. But we want it to go inside our box, and the first thing we need to do is so the background image will be opaque. That's what we want. Okay, that, and our inside image, the fill image, is going to be green. But it's going to be pretty opaque as well, maybe 0.4. Right, we'll try it at that. Now it looks to me like we need to wrap this or actually this button here, we need to wrap this with a canvas panel. Right, and the canvas panel well, we don't have this button research. Okay, so if we put this progress bar in the canvas panel, which it is, but we need to bring it, actually we want it above there, right? Now this vertical box here, the padding 0. Okay, we'll put that back. And that's not right. Now there's something going on here where we need to change something. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this with a border. Then this border is going to be full. Okay, and then the appearance of the border, it's going to be opaque as well, so we can OK that. And now we have our progress bar. Well, the progress bar looks good, right? The only problem here is that it's kind of dark. So if we were to, let's try it at 0.6. We might actually want it to go top to bottom. Top to bottom might work a bit better. Actually, nah. I mean, the other way we could do it, right, is Z order it to -1. And then it fills up the back. And we have, hey Rohit, nice to see you here. How are you today? Right, so we've got our progress bar, right? We really need to rename it to PB Research. And we've got this button research, right? And it's got, probably the way we want to actually do this is to also make this opaque. Right, so if we make it opaque, but if that's the case, then what we'd have to do is to wrap this in a border as well. Right, so this would have to be wrapped in a border. And that border would have to be black. Okay. Then the border would have no padding, which is fine. It looks to me like this image has got some padding, but it hasn't. Okay, so we'll leave it at that. Right, and now it should fill in the background. You'll see from this that it fills up the background. And for some reason, this seems to have padding on it, which it does. So we can actually change that. We want a 0 there and a 0 there. Oh, that's very kind of you, Rohit, to watch the videos. Right, so we still have a spacer here, which we probably don't want. So I'm going to set that to 0. We probably don't need... it's a bit of a time difference. It's only 2 p.m. It's only 2 p.m. here. Right, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to remove this spacer. Right, so we have our progress bar, okay? And we know which it is. So what we actually want to do here, right, is we want to start a new game, then call it game 007. We can OK that, and then when we hit research, well, that's not so good. Right, so obviously PB research should start at 0 instead of 99. Okay. So we can start that again. And if okay, the issue here is if we click on this, and we start it, then it should change our, right, let's have a look here. So we do that. And we set currently researching. And the button we have clicked on, we need to update the status. And we don't set it to We set it to researching. We don't want to set it to complete. Okay. So we can take a look at that. And if we do that, okay, stop that for a second. What we want to do is check on this. So this is kind of a problem. So if we click on that, it's not doing the correct thing. So let's get back into thinking of this. So here we go. We actually really need to think about this a lot. Right, so that clears any tooltips. Then we set the tooltip to nothing. And then I don't know where is active comes from, but we're going to have to check. So let's do a find references on that. So it does it here. Okay. So from here, right, we need to check we return the status. Okay, I think we're going to rename this because it's not really complete. It's basically current status. And then we're basically just setting up the brushes and stuff. So if you have a look at that, okay, and we look at return status, if it's complete, we say complete. If it's researching, so if it's complete, well, it can't be complete. Available, unavailable, researching. Hey, Kofi, how are you, mate? I'm good. How are you? So yeah, this is what I would call kind of iffy code here. This looks like a let's just get it working type of bit of code just to get something on the screen, because it looks like we either say research or unavailable, right? And okay, so we're checking for right, what we'll do is we shall break off let's have a look at it, right? And what it actually does in this case. So basically if we complete something, it turns a different color. Okay? Now, the thing we should do here is we should say researching, and we don't actually need to do that. What we can actually do is take the actual researching and if we plug this in here, this should give us a different answer. Okay, and now this isn't the end of the story here by any means. We should say research, and it now says researching. Okay. And that is fine. Whoops. But now what we need to do is we need to go into our BPC research, right? And then we need to add a variable, and we need to say progress percentage, right? And that's going to be a float. Okay. So basically we need to save the number of things we have against, so it's the requirements against the current progress, okay? So at the end of this, we grab this, we paste it, we're going to stick it on the end, even though That's probably not the best place to put it for now, but we are going to do that because we're kind of crazy. So we're going to do this. We're going to say for each right. And we might need a couple of temporary variables here. So actually what we're going to do is we're going to write a function called calculate progress percentage okay, and it's going to return percentage. That's going to be a float. Okay, so we can go back to here and we can basically cut this and we can paste it in here. Then what we'll do is we'll add two variables and this is required item count and this is going to be current item count. So what we basically do is we loop through these, we get the requirements, and we say that, and then what we do is we do that, we break this for the moment, we pop this in here, and we say this plus this okay, and in fact what we'll do is we'll delete that and we'll delete that and we shall do that plus a float and we'll actually convert this to the float, okay, because we're going to end up dividing the floats anyway, so makes more sense to do it like that for now. So we do that, then this goes in here, and then we do the exact same thing except we do it with, right, so what we do is we copy, we do the same thing for current progress, so we do for each loop, now you've got to remember that we only do this for the one that is active at the moment, so we're not going to be doing this across the board. right? So once we've completed that, we basically do the same thing as this. Right? And we set the current item count. And we get the current item count. And that goes in there. Then we plug the loop into here. Then we can move this all down a bit. Then across a bit. Okay. Then we can move the whole thing over a bit. And then, once we've done that, we basically take the current and basically divide the current by that, by the required amount, and that goes into our percentage, and that goes into there. Right? So that goes in there, and that gives us our calculate progress percentage. So if we go back to our event graph, okay, we go back to our research button. Now we're going to need a way for this to know well, that's okay, there's only ever going to be one component of that type, I believe. Well, that's not strictly the case. Right, we're going to need to think about this one. Well, wait a minute. So the FE controller is the one with the BPC research, okay, at the moment. So what we can do is we can get the controller, do we have a reference to the controller? Apparently we don't. Right, so we'll get player controller again. I'll just do this just now. We'll just do it and maybe we'll set up a reference after this if it becomes a necessity. So we'll cast to FE controller. Right, and then we'll get BPC research, then we shall, what was it? Get percentage protest? No, calculate that. Now this isn't going to go here, so we'll cut it. Right, we'll go back to our event graph. And we look at this one. And if it's, we're going to say is researching, and we're going to drag it here, and we're going to say set, we're going to say true. Okay. Then we're going to do a custom event. And we're going to say update research progress. And we're going to say get that and branch. Right. And we're going to say that if that's true, then we do this, we calculate this. And then with our progress bar research, we set the percentage. To this. And this number here. We save that. And the question is, do we have an event construct? Apparently not. So we're going to have an event construct now, which is basically going to set timer by function name. We'll update it, let's say every 5 seconds. Well, actually we'll do it every 3 for now. And it's going to be looping. Okay. And then we're going to grab the name of this function here. We're going to copy that. We're going to paste it in there. Okay. So let's see if that works. And what we'll do is we shall go back to our DT research required, and we'll up this to 30. Okay, because we don't want it to do it in like 2 seconds and we don't get to actually watch it doing its thing, and hopefully we can take it from there. So we click on that and it is researching. Isn't that nice? That works a treat. Right, so basically this is set to researching, right? So when something is complete, right? So we're processing the research, and the processing the research comes down here, check for completion. So we check for completion, and if it is complete, we reset that, we do all that stuff there. Right, now the interesting thing is this now says complete, right? So in effect, what we want to do is we want to look at our research tree and we want to basically refresh it. I mean, in theory, you could just remove the tree and then just recreate it. But what we want to do is something slightly different. If we can, if this has like a refresh, so it's refresh tree, okay? So if we go to here, we save the game and we say get all widgets of class. Right? And the widget class is research tree. Then we basically say for each, now there should only be one, and what we do is we say right, where was that? It should be refresh tree. That's if I can spell properly. Okay. So we'll save that, and we shall bring these down a bit, not to be quite so big. So we'll bring these down to 20. That should make things go a bit faster. We shall save that. We shall run it. New game. Game 009. Okay, that. Do that. Click research. And let's see what happens when it gets to the end. Okay. It's looking good so far. But it hasn't researched, it hasn't completed this, right? But when we come back into here, you'll notice that it does. I think I know why that is, right? It's because with this, we are setting, if it's complete, right? We're setting this to complete. Okay. This thing to complete. But in this case, we're not setting the, when we're doing it in the button, we're just basically getting the stuff from the data table. Or are we? No, we're not. Or at least we shouldn't be. Right? But if we return status, we're passing in the status, right? So if we're passing in the status, we are passing it in from here, and we're getting this struct here. So this would suggest that when we refresh the whole thing, it's going in here, right? But it's never being reset. Okay, it should be going into here, but it's not, for whatever reason. So, how am I going to test this in a way that makes sense here? So it's still saying researching, okay? Or it's saying researching. So let's have a look at this again, right? Now, if we do this, then we say research that. It says researching. If we close it, then we reopen it, it still says researching. So the current status is researching. Okay? And it is the only one that says researching. So let's stop it again. And the interesting part, so this would mean that the struct here that's been read from isn't updating. So it isn't updating this struct. So it isn't updating my struct, right? And that's because well, it's not really because of anything. Well, actually it is. That's only if you click on the button. You update that. So we need to find out where it's picking up the values from, right? So the question here is, it's expose on spawn and instance editable, right? So if we go to the research tree, we build the grid, right? We need to find out, so it's getting my struct, and it's getting it from struct research items, so that's correct. So what I'd be interested to do here is, right, in this right? Rather than try and update this, what we'll do is we'll remove this, right? I'm just going to be interested to see what actually happens here. So I'm going to say remove from parent, right? And then I'm going to recreate it to see if we actually get the right thing. So we want the research tree, and then we add to viewport. Okay. So what we'll do in the meantime is we shall manage the data. Yes. 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 Okay that. Okay that. Okay that. Okay that. Apparently you can't. Right, so we'll say new game. Game 001. That'll do it. Doesn't really matter. So we'll do that, and we'll do that. Okay, now there should be nothing. If we resume that. Wow. Did I click on that? Right, wait a minute. Stop that. Right. I'm forgetting where I was now. So. Right. Okay. So once it completes, it should shut this window down and then reopen it. Right, and I just want to see if it's actually refreshed it or not. And it hasn't really. Now we know that it's getting its value from there, and it's also getting its status from here. So when we run the data table, we get it from the struct research items, right, from the game instance. So if we check our game instance, we have the struct research items. Okay. So it would appear to me that there's something here that's not picking it. It's picking it up from the data table and not not from the struct reset. Items. Right, so low, that's okay. That's okay. Right, that's okay. And that's for testing purposes. Load column data. Right, so on build grid, we create the research, this button. And the research button right, this can go. The switch on the ease status. This is the major one here, right? This is the major one here because this is the one that's basically screwing everything up. This is the one that sets the text, etc., etc. So it must be that whatever this is, it's passing back a my status of researching, right? Now, we're not going to be able to do that, disable the breakpoint just now, right? So, if we press play and start a new game and go there, right? And then we click research and then we enable this breakpoint. So in theory, probe 1 is not being refreshed. Okay. So if we step into this, it says researching. Okay. Now that's weird because this struct is actually not. So like my struct status right, and that's being called from the research tree. So the struct research items, for whatever reason, has not been refreshed, right? It's not been refreshed. Even though so if we close this and we hit it again, right, a research tree is going to have this so step over it's not going to show you these values. So here's what we're doing, we're filling, we're saying fill the widget, right? So if we step into that, this is given our widget. And we've set up these values, right? Because these are exposed on spawn. And if we step into this, we've got researching, which it shouldn't be. Okay guys, I'm going to have a quick break for 2 minutes. I shall be back in a moment or two. And I hope to see you soon. Well, 2 minutes. In fact, don't go anywhere. Okay guys, we're back. Let's figure this one out. So the question is, how is it that this one still says researching when it's actually complete? Because if I press stop, right, and then I press play again, right, and continue, then you'll notice if I resume that, it's got complete. Now I find that to be very, very weird. Hang on. Hang on. FE controller. Yeah. Are we for some reason pulling it from struct research at some point? Right. So there's a game instance. And there's a struct research. Right, what we want to see is find references. And we don't use it. So I can only assume when we pass this in, okay, we're not going to update that. We're going to go to our event graph. And we're not going to do that. What we're going to do is delete that. We're going to print out our, we're going to get, oops, we're going to get our game instance, right? And then we're going to get our research items. And for each, and we're basically going to print them, right? So we're going to break the struct, and we're going to do an append. Right, we're going to put loads of spaces in there first. Then we're going to add that. Then we're going to add a couple of pins. And then we're basically going to say status. Okay? and then we're going to print string, then we're going to add that. Okay, that's going to go in there. Then we're going to make it white. Okay, that, and we'll put it up for 20 seconds, and that's on the down key, right? So press play, new game, 004. Okay, so if we hit down key, it gives us availables and unavailables, right? And the last one is the probe. So if we resume that and we hit the button, okay, so we click that, resume that, we hit the down button, it says researching. Okay, now if we leave it long enough, it still says researching. We resume that, still says researching. That's because it's not complete yet. So it is complete now. We can resume that. And it still says researching. Still says researching. Still says researching. Still says researching. Okay, if we stop that and press play again, we press continue, it's now complete. So when we save it, we're kind of not saving it. Right? So if we go into here, so the struct requirements, right, okay. So basically what's happening is we aren't updating the game instance. right? Yeah, we aren't updating the actual game instance. So we're setting this to complete. Right, so that's doing our little widget. And basically, right, okay. So fundamentally what we should do is exactly the same thing here, right? But we should be doing it we should be doing it with the game instance. Oops. We should be doing it with the game instance. Okay, and in fact this should replace this up here, and then what we should do is basically do the save game with the game instance, right? So that updates the game that, right? So what we should actually do is then on completion of that, we should delete that, and we should set this to be equal to this. Okay? So in theory, this should go right, and this should go in its place. It should go to there. Okay, so this should go in here, and then at the end of this we should be setting our game instance our saved data to the same as what is in our instance at this point. Right, then we can move this down. And this can go here. Right. We can save that. Okay. Now, I'm kind of confident that's fixed it. But only kinda. Not 100% on this one. So we'll do our manage data thing. Right, I'll close that. Click new game. Game 001. Okay, that. Right, so we go like that. We resume. We click on that. We resume. We close that. We let it do its thing. And once it's complete, we should see it do something. Right. And there we go. It's done it. So we'll click on that one. We shall resume. Close that. And we're getting there, guys. There's the research complete on probe 2. Can resume that. And that's done. Everything else is working. We're cool. Right. And we need to stop there. We need to play. And if we continue, we resume, and everything's still okay. So there you go. Now, I need to do some tidying up on these, but the fundamentals is that it's working, it's doing what it's supposed to do. We can delete that. Well, once we stop it, we can delete that. Apparently it doesn't want to, but we'll force it. Right. So we've now got this working. And now we need to decide if we're going to create actual bottles of research or whatever it is we're going to do. If we're going to have research items that you actually make, or particular items that are required for a certain level of research. So we're basically deciding whether we want to go the factorial route or the satisfactory route, or we think of something of our own that makes us stand out a bit from those games as something a little bit different. Now, what we could do to make it a little bit different from satisfactory and factorial is we could make the research items procedurally generated so that there's it's not always the same things that you need to build, right? So for example, one time the science could take bauxite and copper ore, then the next time you play it might take copper ore and iron sheet. So basically it varies on what type of thing you're actually doing. So that would be an interesting way to do it. You could go the satisfactory route where you've basically got research bottles, but they're not called research bottles, they're called some, whatever it is. The building parts for a big tower or something, right? But they're just unique parts, just like, red science, black science, green science. In factorial, there's really not much of a difference between how they actually work together. So anyway, point being, if we need to decide on a way to do it either way. Okay, and then we need to decide on whether or not, right, well the point here is, right, what we can do is we can go to our items and recipes. So if we go to recipes, right, and we bring up items, these are all the items in our list at the moment. Now this is going to get a heck of a lot bigger, but if we, for instance, add, like, let's say, let's call it research and we call it type 1. Okay, so then we go to DT items, right, and we can add one, and it's called research and type 1. Okay, and then we can say that, and let's say it's going to be made, well, doesn't really matter, we can redo this later, this category. And we're going to need some images and stuff. And can you craft by hand? Let's say yes. Is tradable? No. Value isn't really important. research level is 1. Let's say the handcrafting time is 5. And there's no restock values because you can't sell it, right? And then if we go into the recipes themselves, we can add, and this is going to be research type 1, right? And the product out is going to be research type 1. Now we're going to need our little product image, so let's pick something, anything. Actually, you know what? We could make it that for now. And the process time, let's say, is 5. And the input is, let's say, iron sheet. Thank you for the subscribe, whoever that was. I'll check the name in a moment. Elos, thank you very much. That's very generous of you to subscribe. Much appreciated. So if we say iron sheet 10, right, and we add another one, and the other one is going to be, let's say, copper wire, right, and that's going to be, let's say, 10, and we're going to output 1 research item. Then where is it made? It's made in a fabricator. So basically we've now made it that we can actually make this item. So let's just test that, in fact. Let's see if we can actually make it. So we can say continue, we can do that, and there's our research type 1, okay? And apparently we can't make it. We know we need copper wire, we need 10 of them, right? So let's see if we can actually get this to work. Got 6. Okay. So we've got 10. Now I'm not 100% sure why this isn't actually building. It maybe is, but we have no. Right, I'm going to minimize this for now, and I'm going to open up the crafting. It's something I've not set up here. It's going to be pretty darn obvious. Rockets, recipe. Is it? Yeah, it's inventory. and crafting, and it's this here. So if we go to the graph and we go to the event graph, right? Apparently we don't have a button click for that, which would be very strange indeed. It's not going to be in the crafting list, so it's actually in the inventory, so it's the W crafting item in actual fact. So on the event graph, if we button click it, it's going to ask enable breakpoint, can we craft it? And if the answer is no, then we know what the problem is. So we'll click that, and it says can we craft it, and the answer is no. So the craft quantity is 1. That's fine, we can resume that. We can click it again, then we can step into this to see why it's not viable. Right? So add the breakpoint here, resume that, click on that, resume, and it never gets there. Right, so it never gets to set it to not viable, so it must be failing at some other point. Okay, so my only reasoning must be it's coming from DT recipe and it's not finding it. Right, let's prove the point. And let's check our DT recipes. Research type 1. Now have I spelled all? Right. I think I know what the problem is. That's a 1 and not an I. So we can save that. Let's make sure our DT items is set up type I. Right, okay. So I believe that was our problem. We may need to actually, well, let's try it. I don't know if it's going to allow us to update those data tables on the fly like. So if we step over, it's actually doing it now. So it has actually allowed us to do it on the fly, and there is our thing. Okay. So that all works nicely. And with that in mind and that all working, I think I'm going to call it for this afternoon. So I hope you've enjoyed the stream. If anybody's still watching, check out the description for Discord links, hit the subscribe button. You can check out previous game on Steam and the Patreon. And thanks again for watching, and I shall see you at 8 PM this evening Central Time. Bye bye for now.